Welcome to the Wednesday live session of Oak and Rock Fatherhood. As always, Zach Small, Anthony Migliorino. We're coming at you tonight to talk about fatherhood, to talk about family, to talk about doing our best. And importantly, we're doing our thing to help you do your thing. This is about you. We're going to have the discussion, but we would do this in private. The reason we're doing this in public is so if you have a question, we can address that live on air. We can cater it to your situation. So if you like what it is we're doing, you're picking up what we're putting down, hit the like, subscribe, spread the good word, let the people know we're doing this thing because we need more people normalizing the conversation around fatherhood. And today we're talking about the subliminal war on kids. Later on, we're going to have our guest hopping in here, but for right now, Anthony and I are going to roll with it. We're about to share the video that sort of kicked this thing into gear. With that, once it's up and rolling, we're going to show you guys kind of how this tip does in motion. Actually, our guest just arrived. We're going to bring him onto the panel. Welcome, Joshua Lisec. Good, sir. How you doing?
Hey, pretty handy. Zach, Anthony, how you guys doing?
Doing very well. We've got it rolling. We're streaming right now. I was telling them I was about to share that video that we had showed you, as that's kind of what set all this into motion. And you'll see throughout this discussion, we're going to have several topics. I'm going to bring a few of them up now to kind of plant the seeds. So first off, if you have the questions, throw them in the chat. But here's where we're going to be rolling. We've got courts that are recognizing the rights of parents to hit their kids, but not the rights of the children to not be hit. We're talking about how there's a big discussion on how men should not be hitting women. And there's this new thing where we're recognizing women should not be hitting men either. We're all talking about that. Nobody's talking about kids. Kids these days need more discipline. What does that mean, though? What do you really say? What do those words mean to you? Authority over autonomy. It's an interesting hot topic buzzword right there. Who's the authority? And when you're not there over your child, well, then who's the authority? And what are they allowed to do? Do they assume all authoritative roles that the parent has? We'll see. But again, as we go through all this, it started with this video we're about to share, and then we're going to dive into it. We're going to get Anthony's perspective, Joshua's perspective, and then my own. And it's our hope that you start to see the things that have kind of been avoided intentionally, or you're outright missing and you don't realize what these words mean. And again, I said the official host of the Spot the Propaganda series, Mr. Joshua Lisec. We really wanted to talk to him because not only does he understand words, he understands imagery, he understands tonality, rate of speech. I mean, this man understands communication. And so he's going to explain to us some of the ways that he's starting to see it as well. And I just think the overall discussion should be one that helps us be better prepared to protect our children. Without further ado, this is the video that sparked the whole discussion. I'm going to hit play. I'm going to let it roll. Oh, I just hate it. I'm not sure if you guys will catch the audio, but I'm going to keep it on and let it roll that way.
Here you go, Lilo. Yummy, yummy din-dins. It says, love you.
For those in the back, the mother is saying it says love you. That plate does not say love you. This little innocent, beautiful child here is sitting there looking for her food. She's in a diaper. So let's say 2, maybe 3. I don't know. Has a plate where the mom said, you know what? And here's the caption. She hasn't been very nice to me today. So enjoying the fact that she can't read. Her plate says, fuck you.
Oh, man.
This little child was not being nice to her mom. This little 2 or 3-year-old wasn't nice. So the mom said, fuck you. I'm going to let this finish before I go down that. And look at the kid doesn't know. This little thing is just sitting there and rolling a bit. He just wants to eat. All right, let's get that out of here. That pisses me off. So when I saw that, I obviously shared it. I was like, hey guys, here's my take on it, because that's what you do on Twitter. You give your take on things. My take was I have literally never in my head thought fuck you to my child in any context. I've never written it on a whiteboard. I've never written it on a paper. I've never put it with their food and given it to them. It's never crossed my mind to say that or think that. And to me, if you can think that, if you can come up with that to give to your little toddler right there, what else is going on? What other resentment or underlying underneath the surface waves do you have against that child because they're not, quote unquote, being nice? And so that spiraled into this discussion we're having today. And so that's why we're diving into it. But just wanted you to know there's also a trend on TikTok where a lot of parents are doing this.
Yeah.
Anthony Anthony's a friend of mine, but I never know what kind of friendship it is where every time he sends me things, I'm getting pissed. So I've got to dive into that and kind of do some self-evaluation today because he sent me the trend. And Josh, I don't know if you've seen it, but apparently this is a thing now. A lot of parents are doing this to their kids. They're writing like really shitty curse words and they're giving it to their little babies. It's just, to me, it's insane, but that's probably not even the right term. It's just dark. It's evil. It's just inappropriate on a very high level. But it's tolerated. It's laughed at. It's going viral. It's one of the trending things that's a hit. And so with that, I'm coming off the soapbox. One of you guys want to jump on that as to what you're seeing? Because I can rant on this one, man.
Yeah, I know. I've been hearing your rant for the last day about it. No, I would love to get Joshua's perspective on this. Being the master of persuasion, and this is ultimate manipulation or just pure evil.
Yeah, there's a lot of levels. Multiple levels of dysfunction are present here, and we know that social media amplifies like nothing else. It's an amplifier, truly. Like you put an amplifier, connect your electric guitar on an amplifier. You can barely hear it, and now everyone can hear it.
Like internet alcohol.
That's a good way to put it. Yes. So people who are boundary free, meaning what's appropriate, what's not inappropriate to put out into the world is one thing. So first of all, we're dealing with some serious boundary issues. Okay. Dealing with someone who reminds me of that person who took a sexy selfie in front of a deceased family member at their funeral at an open casket viewing. So we're dealing with that same sort of an individual here. So that's the first thing to know. So I feel bad for the child on that level. The next thing is that you'll find a lot of parents believe in the words supposed to and should, meaning there is a way that my young children, even from a very, very, very young age, are supposed to act, that there's a way that they should act. And if they don't, it means they're bad, they're not nice, as that TikTok video said. It's their sin nature. It's their inherent rebelliousness. People say that kids don't know right from wrong, so it needs to be beaten into them. That's a typical a domestic discipline, domestic violence kind of perspective that people can try to put into parenting advice. So that's what I think what we're dealing with. That there's a way that they think children should act. There is another meme that answers the other side of this, which goes like this, and it's very popular on Facebook. You'll find that the people who seem to be unable to cope with parenthood go to TikTok and Instagram, and those who are better at it either go to a private community like a Fraternal Order of Excellence, or maybe one of these functional, not dysfunctional, but functional mommy Facebook groups. My wife is in several, and they're very, very valuable because they prevent you from ever posting something like that on the internet publicly. When you're having an issue with a child, you can vent, you can share, and you can get the support that you need. A meme that goes quite viral every time it appears on Facebook. It goes like this. Help, my baby is acting like a baby. How do I make my baby stop acting like a baby? Meaning that this is some sort of ridiculous, unrealistic expectation that the parent is putting on the child. Meaning that a child who's unable to read, possibly unable to communicate in a meaningful way, has big feelings. So could it be that this child who is not being nice, who of course doesn't deserve to have the F word put upon her and go viral and that memory following her for the rest of her life. So of course we're not dealing with someone, a parent, who has any understanding of long-term consequences for their child. So multiple levels of dysfunction, as I said. Going back to the child, most likely what happened, the child was unable to deal with their big emotions over something. The parent, being as emotionally mature as their toddler, also unable to deal with the child's difficult emotions, they heap their own societally enforced and most likely passed on from their own parents expectations on how the child is supposed to act and should act when they have big feelings. And so you have the difficulty of whatever situation caused the kid to not act nice. You have that compounded with what the parent believes that the child is supposed to do. And you have their inability to cope with parenting and the difficulties of it. Because it's hard, especially logistically. When I say logistically, I think every parent understands what I mean when I say parenting is logistically difficult. And then you put in boundaries, a boundaryless individual who cannot understand long-term consequences, who probably doesn't have coping skills, healthy coping skills, the ability to have micro releases of tension and anger so that it doesn't build up to the point that they pop so bad in public and they go viral for all the wrong reasons. You compound all of those things onto that, and we have that TikTok video. Multiple levels of dysfunction, but ultimately, what is it traced back to? Is the mother was probably embarrassed by her parents in a similar way when she was that exact same age or somewhere similar. And so the best way for her to cope with that is to relive her own childhood vicariously through her daughter. And we see this in the same way people shame and abuse and hit and hurt their children. It's merely their own way of reenacting to their child that parent-child dynamic. Now I get to be the bully. See how you like it. And it's really not there. But yeah, go ahead, Anthony.
No, I was going to say, I think it's even worse nowadays, right? At least back in the day when your parents were mad at you, you knew. This is some like deep-rooted subliminal shit, right? They're spelling it out in the food. The kid, they know the kid can't read it. They know the kid can't understand it. So they're just doing it, putting it out there. You know, I think what pisses me off, and that's why I had you go first, because I knew we'd get a more calm explanation. But parents are full of shit. That's how I look at it. This is being celebrated, right? Nobody's saying, oh, look what the parent did, look what the mother did, or very few. Everybody's saying, oh, you know, that kid deserved it, right? That mom's probably under stress. She's under pressure. You know, these kids these days, that's what we hear all the time, right? We need to do things to kids to toughen them up. We need to discipline them through pain. These are all the things we constantly hear. And you see shit like this on the internet, and people, they celebrate it, they embrace it, they love it. They almost get a kick out of it, which I think is really, when you start to examine it and break it down, it's pathetic.
Let's say the year is, 1840 or something, and we take it back to then, and you take your slave owner, and he says, hey, look it, and he writes something totally jacked up, he hands it to his slave, and he looks at all his other buddies, check it out. My guy can't read, he has no idea what I just wrote in front of him. How is this any different? I guarantee that shit like that played out. When you see people who have total dominion over somebody else, they exploit it. It's as if that individual is there for entertainment. They're just something to be used to gain entertainment, literally, labor, servitude, whatever it is. I don't see any difference in the way she's treating this child. I see this in that exact same light, in that this is, you are here, you're my daughter, but you are here, and I'm going to say this, and people are going to laugh at you, and they're going to laugh at this, and next time you won't be so mean, in her head, as if the kid even knows what's going on. The child has no. So this is not a teaching moment. This is, and I wouldn't even say it's an exploitative moment, because to me, when you're exploiting someone, I think they should know. And Joshua, you might actually be able to correct me on that. I'm kind of going back and forth on that. To exploit someone, do they need to know they're being exploited, or can you exploit without them even being aware?
They can be exploited without even being aware.
So she is exploiting her child. The kid doesn't know it. She's just, I'm using you. That's all you are. No thought about the value of the kid. No thought about the future of that child coming back on her. No thought about just the relationship. Again, I wouldn't think to use those words with my kid, but you said something earlier that sort of has been bouncing around since. When we're talking about our kids, when we're talking about, children, we're talking about, the control they have over themselves. In the past, it was done a certain way. And you're talking about how the parents, maybe that's what happened to them. And you said coping. They're coping with it. I've always thought about it as a sense of, I took the beating, and now I finally get to be the beater.
Yes.
I finally get to be. So here's the phase that kind of trips me out. When you leave the home, you're away from the dad, you're away from the mom who was beating you. There's like a window that I would think one would work to heal. Like, I'm away from that trap. I'm not going to replicate it. But when they have kids, it's just like a switch turns back on, and now they become the mom or they become the dad. And so is that coping, or is that the pain finally you get to anesthetize the pain that you felt by putting it onto somebody else? When I hit you, I feel better, even though parents will say it hurts me more than you. It doesn't. You feel better about doing this because that's what was done to you.
Yes, it's almost a sort of a cathartic release. They now get to be the
Article.
person. And most of this is conscious because the subconscious is a much better storage space of painful memories that are just below the level of our own conscious awareness. And so we will often do things. We don't know why we do them. We just do. We can't stop. And this is what the art and science of hypnosis looks at, is how do you fix that, you know? And that's one of the practices I've used with myself to undo unproductive and even manipulative patterns and myself, and realizing like, wow, why when my son does this, I feel like doing this. I don't want to feel like doing this, but I can't stop feeling that way. Why is it? And so whereas traditional therapy might say, okay, Joshua, so tell me about that. You know, hypnosis is just like, let's pull that out of your subconscious mind, replace it with something healthy, and move on. We're done. And this, I think, is a delicate balancing point. So there is a book that has a cringe title, but I flipped open a few pages and I read, you know, maybe 20-25% of it. And I thought, this is onto something. What do I say? What am I talking about? The book is kind of a picture book for adults. It's a millennial thing, you know. The book is called Good Mommies Have Scary Thoughts Too. Something like that. I might be getting the words slightly wrong. It was like, oh, great.
Did you write this book?
No, I didn't.
Okay. I
Most
have
of
to ask.
most of the time, I won't answer that question, though. Most of the time.
Damn
For you that I will. I got to leave some of the mystique on there. Anyway, I open up the book, and it shows the mental world of a mother who's conscious of her own desire to be the best mother that she can. But there are what her single childless girlfriends are telling her, and then there's what her parents are telling her, and then there's what, you know, the society is telling her, and then there's her own thoughts, and there's a sort of serious cognitive dissonance, meaning like, you're so fortunate to be a mother. Oh, it's so wonderful. And then she's thinking like, I have been pooped on 3 times today, and I have been thrown up on, and I had got 2 hours of sleep last night, and my nipples are sore, and I feel fat and bloated. And this is what's in it. I hate this. That's what's going through her mind. And that's very normal. And it's okay to feel that way. However, society says, and a lot of times parents of parents, like basically grandparents, don't think you should feel that way. You're a bad mother if you feel that way. And this applies to fathers as well with other issues, right? But that is a significant point to bring up in this conversation, is that there's how you're supposed to feel. Remember the supposed to and the shoulds, right? Mm-hmm. So we have parents who, by and large in Western civilization, are not generally receiving the support, particularly from their boomer parents. And of course, there's numerous articles that are going viral recently about how uninvolved and detached baby boomers are from their kids and from their grandkids, which I think compounds the difficulty of a millennial or even a younger Gen X and even an older Generation Z couple, or worse, single parent, trying to figure out how to structure life. Because I talked about parenting being logistically difficult. Like, how do I get done the things that need to get done, and the chores and the bills and the this and the that, and to meet their needs, and potty train and this and that and school and my other kid and the next child, and all of these things happen, and we have virtually useless feedback coming in from normie friends and family. You're such a good mother. Oh, it's so sweet. I love your picture. It's so precious. They're like, fuck you, is how they feel. Like, come on, man. Don't you get what I'm going through? But we can't have that. And so we have to keep all of our issues and our tension and our frustrations and our struggles. And like, my kid pooped today. Yes. And it's a sort of moment of joy, but the normies surrounded by you don't get it. And so you keep your struggles and your victories inside until one day you pop, like the TikTok mom did. You pop. So that supposed to, that should, like, I'm supposed to feel this way. I'm supposed to, I should. Remember we talked about cognitive dissonance. I'm supposed to feel this way. I should feel this way, but I don't. There's cognitive dissonance. And oftentimes the solution to that cognitive dissonance, it must be my kid's fault. They're not being the way that they should be. They're not acting right. They're being rebellious. They're disobeying. It's their sin nature coming out. They're not being nice, you see. And so the resolution to, I'm a good parent and I should want to be a good parent, even though it's hard, it's a child's fault. And that oftentimes, unfortunately, becomes a resolution to the cognitive dissonance that is being experienced, right? Because it's easier, much, much easier to scapegoat than to deal.
No, I think that's a good point.
That's what we have here is as I would suspect that this mother is not at all receiving anything close to the support that she needs. And she's surrounded by people who tell her that she's supposed to feel a certain way about being a mother. And she doesn't most of the time. And she cracked. She broke. And what we see here is the broken, unsupported mother who is in many ways a harsh symbol of an entire generation of parents. And unfortunately, it falls largely on her child being the victim of all this. And so while what has happened to this mother is in many ways probably not her fault, it is her responsibility to break the generational curse. And it is sad and clear that she's not in public, but perhaps we'll have in 5 to 10 years. Do you remember that embarrassing, humiliating viral video?
Yep.
Here's how I turned my life around. So we can hope for that. We can even long for that. And we can even know that there is a path to get there.
Yeah. What do you got? Mosquitoes over there, Zach? You okay?
Dude, there's a fly. It landed right in my nose during the discussion. I'm trying to maintain frame here. Okay, can we not talk about it?
No, I want to say that there's a certain element to this, right? Where back in the days, parents would mistreat, hit, and manipulate their children in private. Mm-hmm. But you wouldn't do it in public because we know it's wrong, right? That's to a large degree why we don't see it happening outside a lot. We could only imagine what goes on inside a home with a parent who is not mentally stable, a parent who can't emotionally regulate, a parent who has to lash out on the weakest and smallest person in their home. And while this isn't physical violence, right, it's still abuse, right? It's emotional abuse, even if the kid can't understand it. And what I worry about is when you see it trend on TikTok and people are emulating it, right? They're doing it on their own and making their own videos. It shows you a lack of consideration for the child, right? It shows you that, like you were saying, that they're not fully invested in being a parent, right? They don't even believe that they could be a good parent. And I agree with what you said, right? There are a lot of fathers I speak with that they need help, right? That they need a support team. They need somebody who's going to encourage them and help them become better. So when you're in a position where you don't have that support, and all the examples you gave with being tired, being overrun, parenting is tough. But I think we have to examine, like, when do you get to the point where your morals almost get thrown out the window because you're frustrated or because you're angry? Like, why would we diminish our children just because there's something we can't handle, let alone put it on social media so everybody can see us and try to get, and we want to get feedback from that? It just doesn't make sense.
I think not only is it not making sense, but when I look at this, and I see the parent put that on TikTok and I see the people praise it, I also picture that parent saying, I love my child more than anything. I would do anything for that child. I'm a good mother. I'm breaking my back for that child. The cognitive dissonance, Josh was talking to earlier, the coping, the unresolved trauma, all of it bleeds into a fractured mind. And that's what I'm seeing. Like, people's realities are detached. You will see men who are morbidly obese. They haven't been in the fight in years. They haven't shot a gun in years. They haven't shot an arrow in years. They haven't gone hiking in years. They haven't done anything testing your physical limits in a very long time. And they will watch a movie where Rambo goes and, like, shoots a dude from across the mountain. And, like, I can do that. And they believe it. They truly believe that's who they are in their head. And I see parents like this in the same way. You will make a plate and you will give it to your child that says, fuck you. And you will say, I'm a great mom. And you will believe it. And therefore you're operating in a reality that I'm not even sure how I could crack that shell outside of finding a way for there to be enough of a mirror for you to pause and reflect and see yourself and be like, oh, that's not what a good mom would do. And that's me. And therefore there's something going on here. What that is, though, to act as that mirror from an outside influence, that's a difficult question to answer. On the inside, it's easy.
The point about being a great parent, Zach, I think speaks to the squishiness, the slipperiness, the elusiveness of definitions of words. What you see as a great mom, and Zach, you're always praising your wife as a great mother to your children. That's always wonderful to see, always heartwarming. But in her situation, she probably thinks of herself as a great mom. Now, what does she mean by great? If you were to put her on the defense, she'd say, of course I'm a great mom. I feed my kid their favorite food. They're wearing clothes, aren't they? She got a place to live, doesn't she? I'm a great mom. Right? So what we see as great is very, 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 very different. If you ask a fundamentalist religious person, being a great parent is to be swift and decisive with the use of pain in order to correct sinful behavior. That's what it means to be a great parent. And I have told people told me personally, Joshua, if you are not hitting your child, you are a bad parent. And so now we have the
what
of words and labels. Yeah.
Nobody said that to you. I want their name and address after the show.
I think I am continually amazed by what people will tell me on social media in public under their own name, or at least under their own name if it's in a direct message.
It's crazy.
Every time it seems like every time I tweet about something like, I used to believe this and now I believe Y. It's like, well, what do you mean, Joshua? It's obvious that old thing is true, and it makes you double take. And I'll read what people will post online to me, to my wife, and she'll say, nobody actually believes that. Come on, Joshua. Nobody actually thinks you should spank your kids. Nobody actually believes that.
Shouldn't there?
And then I ran a poll. I spank my kids in quotes, right? And then the furry one was, yes, I'm glad I did. Yes, I regret it. No, but I wish I did. No, and I'm glad I didn't. The overwhelming majority were either, yes, I did, and I'm glad I did, or no, I didn't, but I wish I'd spanked my kids. Overwhelming majority of the poll.
Insane to me. Why?
You need some new Twitter friends, dude.
And so now I tweeted earlier tonight: block early and block often. So anyone who comes at me with sketch energy, they're gone. They're gone. So sadly, it seems like peaceful parenting, at least, and that kind of like that even in itself is a general word that can have a tent with so many different camps beneath it.
Yeah, but that's what I was going to say. Shouldn't we have some sort of standard, like universal principle behind great? If we want to say we're great parents, shouldn't there be a standard that we adhere to? Right, like you don't hit people, you don't manipulate people, you don't.
Yeah, but it's tough love, Anthony. You have to understand.
No, I get the buts. I really do. So, like you were saying before, right? And I agree to a point, right? To come from the perspective of the mother that things are tough. But imagine if the roles were changed. Imagine if it was a husband who was beating on his wife, and there was a whole bunch of women came out against it to protest, and we were like, no, wait, you don't understand. The guy had a hard day, right? He had a long day at work. The food was cold when he got home.
Listening.
She wasn't listening.
Wasn't nice to me today.
We know better now. I just it's crazy how, as adults, and this is what drives me crazy or just enrages me, is that to be good men, to be strong men, we need to protect kids. We need to protect the most weak and vulnerable people in society. And it's not happening. And I think you're going to continue to see the bumfuck shit we see on the news all day until that happens, until the home is squared away, until men are squared away, and until the women are following that lead from the man. Like, yeah, there's absolutely no way you're hitting this kid. If you hit that kid, I'm going to knock you out, metaphorically speaking.
And something else, speaking of instinct, one we have to wonder what's happening to that natural, that innate mama bear instinct. Like, black bears are known as one of the most peaceful creatures, unless you get between a mom and her cubs, in which case you will turn an herbivore into a carnivore very quickly, and she'll eat every last inch of your entrails for getting in between her and her son, her and her daughter, or cubs, however many there are, right? What has happened that multi-million-year-old instinct has been suppressed in women like this? Now, I think that would be an interesting question, but the answer, maybe the more useful question is, well, what do we do about it? Now that it is apparent that mama bear and papa bear instincts in many of us, not the three of us, of course, we're perfect. But what can be done to cultivate that again? And because the instincts that we have are so useful. And this is what I tell my son all the time. Follow your instincts. He has in him everything he needs to survive and thrive in a community. That is what his biology, his makeup has. And so to nurture a child's instincts is to raise them to be a functional individual who can exercise personal agency and can listen to their gut instinct and follow it. And so I have to wonder what's happening causing this, and then how do we fix it? Where are the mama bears and the papa bears? Instead, we get these soy lineals out here posting about how they, got their wife bought them pizza, beer, cupcakes, and a new Lego set for getting the old snip. And you've got people posting "fuck you" to their kids. Okay, what happened to mama bear and papa bear? And more importantly, how do we get that back?
That last part is the main part, because one of the things that I pride myself on is not talking about problems, but addressing solutions, working towards solutions. And I'm going to share a little bit of my perspective and approach to life. And I wonder if the answer is somewhere in here. When you ask that question, one of the first places my brain went is I parent the way I thought I would parent as a kid. That creativity, that passion, that like, I'm going to do this so big and have such a good time doing it. I'm doing that. And a part of my success online, it's not because I have an incredible skill set on something that is a 1% thing. I'm not one of the guys where like, I'm not the number one ghostwriter, and there's like 5 people in the world who are doing the things that I'm doing. No, I'm a man, I'm a veteran. I've got these things going for me. I've got a lot of skill sets up there in the mental toolbox. But one of the things I am exceptional at is getting people to take ordinary things they do, hanging out with a kid, going out with their wife, working out, talking to their friends. And I can get them to turn that into the fucking World Series. I can get that to like a climactic moment in a movie when you're like, oh, that feeling you get of like, wow, this thing's huge. I can get dudes to feel that every single day in interactions with their children. I can do it with interactions with their wife. I can get them to meet guys. We had a meetup this last weekend, and you're just like, man, we are in it. We are talking high level. We are connecting. We're doing the things that we've always said men should do. And we're literally living it in the real world.
You're going to have to work on your fishing skills.
And I think a part of it, I killed that minnow. I'm the minnow slayer. A part of it is getting back to being intentional about how you live as a parent. To me, I think somewhere in there, I've yet to put my thumb directly on it. When I do, you'll see the video drop here. But somewhere on there is, I believe, the solution to better fatherhood. Obviously, awareness is huge. That's why I wanted to do this discussion. I wanted people to start seeing things. It's subliminal because people often overlook the fact that kids are getting wrecked. Earlier, I'm going to throw it back up there. In these states, I'm embarrassed to shit that mine's one of them. But in these states, kids can get hit in school. They can get flogged. They can get paddled. They can get corporal punishments legal in these schools. My personal goal is for there to be 0 left the day I die. There should be no corporal punishment in the public school system, private, anywhere that we're allowed to control. There should be no corporal punishment. Kids should not be able to be hit by anybody in any institution for any reason. You're not even allowed to hit soldiers in boot camp. They can do a lot of fucked up shit to us. They cannot hit us. There are certain groups where things are a little intense, but they can't do that. But a kid in 5th grade, you knock down your laptop. They had a big video of the principal paddling the kid. And they're like, oh, this never happens. It's just an old school thing. Kind of like on Sundays, you can't walk across the street in whatever town. It's not one of those funny things that's kind of weird. This happens. This happens frequently. There's videos everywhere. Google it. In these states. I'm going to leave that up because it bothers me. But when you see it, go ahead.
No, I was going to say in boot camp, they don't hit you because grown men can hit back, right? That's the difference. Teachers hit kids because kids aren't going to hit them back until a certain age, I would suppose. But imagine your child came home and said, Dad, my teacher paddled me with a wooden paddle, smacked my ass because I didn't do my homework or I was told.
I live in North Carolina, and my kids go to school in North Carolina. I would be the wrong motherfucker. You know when they say like try me? Like this is probably the first time in my life I'd be like, try me. Like this I'm not the one man. I'm the wrong one.
Lockdowns, mandates, closed borders. I can't leave the country. You hit my kid, I'm blowing shit up.
That's the family militant.
We're going
Like,
Mad
no
Max.
longer family alpha. But in that, so my point is raising awareness is a huge part of what the question Josh was asking. How do we fix this? How do we start bringing, a redirection to this? Like, hey, here's the cure to your problem. Here it is right here. Do this thing. 1, we got to see it. 2, I think you need to find that programming you're talking about, that satisfaction in your brain, that happiness through the interaction with the kid. You can start to override the system that's saying, oh, it's about me. It's about me. I'm wondering when you brought that up, if the primal brain that's designed to enjoy, I guess, the attention, survival, I'm not sure if it's dopamine that's really going on in there, but whatever that is, I think that's stronger than the mama bear, papa bear, whatever that is. That self-preservation, that sense of self is stronger. And because social media gives that overrides the other. It's the bigger fish eating it. So they're both very strong. One's just more strong. And so in that, I'm thinking that's playing a role in this as well. But what if we could make the mother connection, the father connection stronger than the self connection? What if we could phase adults? And I'm not sure if it's a maturity thing, but what if we could evolve them from, hey, look at me, social media, look at me, to look at me with my family. I have the privilege to raising another life. Look what we can do. What if we could make that stronger and a better message on a social level en masse? Somebody would have to find a way to sell something for it to really catch, because then people would definitely promote it. But I think that's the cure. I think that is the solution. I think that is the approach, and that's the angle I plan to take with it. I'll say that.
If Josh's got nothing, I will say that when I look at what you're describing, Zach, and I agree with what you're saying and what you want to do, and I think it will be effective. I think it has to come down to an individual's own instincts, right? Who they see themselves, especially fathers, especially men. And it's similar to like if you don't really want freedom, you're not going to be free. If you don't really want to be a good father, it's not going to happen, right? There's things within yourself that you're going to have to want to work on and improve and repair, right? If you don't care about yourself, it's going to be really hard to take care of a child, and help them develop into a healthy person. So, I mean, I think a lot of what you're already doing, right, with the fraternity, and I mean, just bringing guys together and repairing wounds, I think that's a big part of it. I mean, we can get Joshua to hypnotize the whole world on like a mass hypnosis once we get a lot of views on this channel, and maybe change it that way. But until then, I think it's still.
But isn't that the importance of community? Like,
Yeah.
as you're saying this, the image in my head is like a dude's on, like the man is on fire. He's in a boat. The boat is sinking. He's taking his bucket and he's scooping the water out. And so he's trying to save the boat. He's trying to save the life raft that he's in, but he's going to die in the process. If he jumps into the water to save himself, the boat goes down. So he loses the things he did because he puts himself first. But what if you had someone else to spray you down? And so we spoke about FOE. Obviously, I'm biased towards that group, but just friendships, male networks, fatherhood connections, those don't exist.
No, and I get it, but I think the one thing that's missing, and what we see proves otherwise. There's a lot of fucked up people. There's a lot of wounded people. So to go out and say, "Hey, follow me," right? I'm going to help you. I'm going to carry you. I got your back. People can't even comprehend that. They don't even understand it, right? They don't want it. That's why I alluded to freedom before. They don't want to be free. They don't want to be better. They're so fucking crushed from their childhood. If you go out there and you say, "Come on, follow me," all they're thinking is, "No, we can't do it. I'm not good enough. Who the fuck is this guy?"
Welcome to Oak and Rock nihilism.
Something that's worth thinking about is that most people at any given moment are doing the absolute best that they can. And that is a hard fact to accept when we see videos like this, or in anything that makes us double take and wonder how in the world could they be thinking that, or could they be doing that? And so what do those sorts of folks need? You got it on the money, Zach, with needing community, needing support, needing people that you can share with and you can learn from. And sometimes it's just, and this would be like a private community in which people can freely vent and say, this is how I'm feeling, this is what I'm going through, right? So that need to get out the angst you feel, which ended up on TikTok, unfortunately, in the humiliation of the child, that can be in a safe and private and secure place. So while social media can amplify the worst instincts, it can also provide a safe haven for decompression, as you were saying, Anthony, that emotional regulation again. And so using the tools that we have at our disposal, we can make a lot of progress, generally speaking. And I'm not going to be the person who says that he has all the answers. What I do find myself often called into for advice on is, how do I persuade people? How to make them do what I want to do? And of course, the answer to that is you can't. You can only find the desire that they have. And it's a famous acronym, what's in it for me? And so while we want to be peaceful parents, conscious parents, persuasive parents, respectful parents to our kids, what would it mean? What would it look like? How would it feel if we were peaceful, conscious, persuasive, respectful friends to the people who aren't yet where we are as parents?
It's a difficult task.
It is, especially when you want to get their address and hunt them down to destroy them. Huh,
I was just kidding.
No,
I'm a peaceful father, dude. Come
I
on.
will say this. There have been multiple times since the last time we had you on where we've referenced you and your closing points on if we want to win people over, we've got to show them the benefits and stop barking at them. So we've been trying
what's in
to
it for
do
the
that.
parents? You know, yeah. What's in it for the parents to do things a little differently?
I think in that though, I'm trying to. You helped me with that quite a bit, actually. You changed a few things in my mindset about how I was going about this. And so one of the things I've been doing is giving examples of like, well, what if I paint this story you're living in a different picture and I put it there, maybe you can see yourself differently instead of me saying, hey, here's your picture and here's the flaws in it. So instead of saying, hey, every time you hit your kid or you turn your kid over to a school where they can hit them, what if we did this? Would you give your car to somebody and they're like, hey, I'm going to like a roller derby, I'm cruising around. I might bang it up. I might not bang it up, but I will always bring it back to you. And so they always bring you your car back, but sometimes it's got like dings in it and little chunks missing. You're like, what the heck? He's like, no, it still works. The engine runs, the lights turn on, the wheels go, everything's fine. I filled it with gas. And then we look at our kids. You'd be like, no way. I wish that we could find a way to get people to take that sense of personal pride in their relationship with their child to where they would never allow someone else to take it and do that with them. And so when it says placing authority over autonomy, just because your teacher said do this, because a politician said do this, a town committee said you have to do this, you have so much pride in that relationship and how in the standard you hold. You know, like for my family, we're Smalls. We do things our way. If it's the right thing to do, we're going to go and do it, but we're not going to do it just because we're told to do it. We'll say no. We'll bend the rules. We're not going to break laws, but we might break some rules. And my kids, you know, that we'd go to parks without masks on. We'd go and play. Like we would kind of do things our way, and other families weren't. But I was like, this is just how we operate. If more families had that sense of connection and bond to their child, they wouldn't just give them away and say, I don't care what happens to it. No, you very much would care. And so that's something I'm trying to put more emphasis upon, is not so much be a peaceful parent as much as your connection to your child should be something you take great pride in, something that you value above almost everything else in your life. And so that angle, it's less of me, you know, taking out my freaking machete over here and saying, be a good dad, and more of like, hey, you come to that conclusion. Here's some breadcrumbs. You go to the conclusion that you find best, though. And in that, maybe you start changing your actions. Maybe you behave a little bit better around something that you love so much. And you're like, you know what? I really like this and the relationship we have. And if I erupt right now on this, it's gonna harm that. We've had such a good day. Let's skip it today. And then that's just one day where they held it in. And maybe they blow up the next day, but maybe it's 2 days the next time. And then a week. And then you put them on that path where they never said, I'm going to be a peaceful parent. I'm going to be a more connected parent, though. And they turned into something that we would strive is the removal of any violence within the home.
Beautifully put. Beautifully put.
Amen.
You know, and we talk about what's in it for parents to try something different. You know, I am reminded of it was a thread a few weeks, maybe a couple of months ago. I don't remember exactly, so I'm not going to quote and name the people. Will say it's a thread we saw in which a fellow who has preteen, maybe teenage daughter going through some stuff, acting out. The traditional parenting would say embarrassing the family, disobedient, rebellious, sinful, all these sorts of like labels, right? That would be thrown on the child, and that means punishment and discipline and leadership and make the child submit. All these sorts of words, right? That are all about power as opposed to influence, coercion versus persuasion. And it was the fellow was asking for advice. You know, she locked herself in a room, won't come out, and she's been mean to both of us all day and siblings, and it's just a mess, something like that. And the replies they were a real piece of work. Those replies, you know. And I think the most popular one was a sarcastic, "Yeah, keep her in there till she's 18," as in the best response to get the behavior you want is punishment. Now, someone responded and said, "What if you just asked her what was wrong and see if you could help her fix it?" And
let's take a moment to let that soak in for the people in the back. I want to make sure they heard the sound waves go there. What if you spoke to your child and got to their level and said, "What's going on? How can I help you?"
And fast forward to the end of the story, he said, "Yeah, so she unlocked the door, told me something that was really bothering her, I didn't know about, and I asked her what she thought we could do to fix it. We came up with a solution. We fixed it, and now she's back to normal before she turned 12 or 13 or whatever." And the fellow seemed shocked that it actually worked that fast. And so think about the rigmarole and the tension and the drama in what so many movies and shows and popular culture demonstrate as a normal parent-child relationship where they're at each other's throats. And you know, that show a Cobra Kai that a lot of people like to watch. The most recent season, you know, the parents are like completely ignoring the trouble, the younger child, the preteen, and he's being a bully at school, and the parents are completely oblivious to it, you know, and he's deceptive and manipulative, and the parents are ignoring it, and then they refuse to admit that they're the problem. And then one day after the child goes in there, the dad goes in there and breaks the child's iPad, and that gets him set straight, and that punishment of destroying his son's technology, that set him right, and that's on discipline. And of course, it's basically a sci-fi fantasy we're watching in that sort of arrangement. That's not what happens. What happens is a kid says, okay, I guess I need to break the rules and not get caught next time. That's what that teaches. That's what the use of punishments and rewards, and I think they're both manipulative for similar reasons. But what ultimately it is elevating behavior over relationship, rules over relationship, submission over relationship, and then we have to ask ourselves, come back to the what's in it for me. Do we want to raise children who submit to the bossiest person in the room, who are going to look for the rules to make sure that they're doing exactly what they're being told so that they don't get in trouble? That is the killer of creativity, the destroyer of autonomy, and the wiper-outer of personal agency. And I'm not about that life.
No, not at all. You said something there, and I always pay attention with your words because they're very particular. And you said that Hollywood demonstrated this type of relationship. And it confused me because I would have used the word promote, but they're not promoting it. They're saying that this is the way it is. They're not trying to sell it to you. They're just saying this is what homes look like. And we're just telling a story that you can relate to because this is what your home looks like. When I watch, so I know exactly the episode, the scene, the whole, everything going on there. My son's way into it. We did Muay Thai and he's like, I'm going to fight now karate. And so we're like, all right, we're going to watch Cobra Kai. A lot of scenes we fast forward through. Anyways, in that, so many times I will tell Jackie, I'm like, oh, no way. Like that, we would never do that or this or this. And you see so many things going on there. And I'm wondering how many, and I've said this, how many families watch this and think that's totally normal? and they relate
or
to
even
that.
ideal.
Or they wish, yeah, that's the way to go. That's the type of family I wish. Are you kidding me? It can be, and I wonder, what if we made a show that showed our, like, what if the three of us were hanging out and just people were trailing us, they saw us, and they're like, hey, check out this series. Wow, look at these. There's nobody's fighting. People are getting along and looking out for each other and taking care of one another. That's insane. That's Hollywood BS. No, that's literally all three of our day-to-day lives. And we document in our own ways. We share in our own ways. I see each of you guys. There's a reason the three of us are on this panel right now. You know, and there are a lot of other men who do what we do differently. They do their version of it. And everybody's doing well and everybody's thriving. It's literally the life people are saying they want to live. And we're saying, here is how we got there. Here are the steps, the tools. You know, Anthony, your kids are older than mine, so I'm following some of your things. My kids are older than yours, Joshua's. You're looking at some of the things that we're going through, and it's just like we're passing notes to the next guy, and then we're swapping notes through our peers, and then sometimes we're handing them up to the guy above us, and he's throwing it all the way over us to the next guy below who doesn't even have kids yet. When you have kids, here's something that you could do that I didn't do. I had wished that I had done this thing and this thing and this thing, but you can start out on the right foot. Don't fall in the holes that all three of us fell into. Do even better than us. And they're passing it to the next guy. That is completely possible. That fantasy that people think is unachievable, it will blow anything Hollywood could ever create out of the water. They can't, because they don't know, because a lot of people that are living inside that environment aren't connected to families that are operating the way the three of ours are. And maybe it doesn't sell. You know, maybe a peaceful home is not something that's going to draw a lot of eyes because there's very little drama. It exists, but it's just not the same. It's not contentious drama. It's more like development and growing and the pains of becoming a new person drama.
Yeah, a peaceful home is not going to be entertaining to somebody who's in a constant fight or flight brain pattern, right? That needs some sort of negative stimulation or something bad happening. But you had up, Zach, kids need to be disciplined more. Is that what that said?
I'll bring it back up.
Yeah, man. Look at that. That new stuff for the 2022 for you. Yeah, kids these days need more discipline. And I think it's weird because when I was growing up, I remember leaving the house in the morning and not coming home till dinner time. I don't remember my parents bugging me, bothering me, or looking over me, not as much as I see the kids being controlled these days. So I think it's odd that statement comes up a lot, right? That they blame the weakness of society, that kids aren't disciplined enough. They need to be disciplined more. They need to be hit more. They need to be tougher. I really think that kids are controlled more now than they've ever been throughout history. I mean, probably less control than if you go back to the 1700s when everybody was, farming, and you had to, as a kid, you had to go out and farm with your dad so you guys can have food and survive. But I think since probably the Industrial Revolution, when we have electricity and we have comforts of modern living, I think kids are highly controlled. I think parents are very fearful. What Joshua was saying before, I think a big part of it is power, being that power hunger, right? Just wanting to control people because you never had control of your life. Nobody allowed you to have the independence or autonomy. So why not display that abuse of power on your kids, right? Why not get some joy of hurting another person? And I don't think it's intentionally. I think it's subconsciously, right? These weird dysfunctions play out because a lot of these parents who are grown up now, who are raising kids, they were hit, they were spanked, they were manipulated, they were punished, they were put in timeouts, right? The severity seems to lessen throughout history, but the tactics still have the same results, right? It's still causing trauma. So if you want to make that point about discipline, I think kids need more love these days. I think that will cure a lot, more connection. So I'm not going to be a nihilist. I'll flip it to the positive, peaceful side of the home.
That's beautifully put, Anthony. Kids these days need more. They need more love. They need more acceptance, more active listening from the adults.
Somebody read PET.
Yeah.
Yeah, active listening is great. iMessages versus you messages, right? There's a whole ton of things that if you just change the way that you speak to kids and interact with them, you literally change their lives for the good.
Yeah.
And isn't
And
that the aim
another
of the
thing about
parent?
changing, I'm sorry, go ahead, Zach.
No, that there's just that question. Isn't that the aim of the parent, to set your child up for a greater trajectory by giving them all the tools, and then the ones you didn't have, and so they can go forward, and then when they have their kids, they take everything you gave them, but they miss this, and this, so they apply that and they give that to your grandkids, their children, and that's legacy. That's the
Well, it's a
trajectory.
domino effect, right? So there's things that your father couldn't teach you, but because of the times and because of the friends that you make, you pick up on things and you learn. Same thing with your son and your daughter, right? They're gonna get a big influence from the way you parented, but because their brain now is operating in a growth mindset and not this destructive pattern of abuse, they're gonna forget better than you. They're gonna be 100 times better than you. You can't even fathom how great they're gonna be, and your grandkids and your great grandkids, just because those chains were broken with how you raise your kids.
I think that might be a good point to bring up when we talk about like raising kids and perception over time, and what is good and what is bad, and what is productive, what is unproductive. It seems like, especially maybe this might be the past 100 to 150 years plus, whether or not you were a good parent was based on whether or not your children behaved. And if you have a well-behaved child, that means you're a good parent. And if your child is not well-behaved and obedient with enthusiasm and instant obedience and submission to the authority and the rules, and always does what they're told, that makes them a good child that reflects well on you, the parent. If the child is not those things, then that means you're a bad parent. And so that sort of that cycle of social shame has been used and put upon someone in this generation, and with the amplification of dysfunction, that your kids acting up and that makes you a bad parent. The parent has to say, well, I don't think I'm a bad parent. It must be the kid's fault. Rather than questioning the standards and wondering, maybe there's a different way to relate to my children. So that's how we began this conversation, right? Is that how people will pull shit like this and then still think of themselves as good parents, Yeah. So what is the superior, more productive, ideal standard that can be as close to universal as possible for what it means to have good kids and to be a good parent? If it's not, my kids are easily manipulated by me and other authority figures. If it's not that, then what is it?
Shit.
Oh, that's a great question. When you're looking at it, the answer, unfortunately, is going to be found in stripping the parents of the thing they want. It's not about you. It's about the kid. And you have to come to terms with that. And so your fear of looking bad, of your child not immediately responding if they go to a sleepover, they go do something, that doesn't make you look like a bad parent. You taught your child to think. You taught your child to act. You taught your child to have their personal code. But that might make you look, in the eyes of those still plugged in, bad. But do you want to be looked at as good by bad people? I don't.
That's a good tweet, Zach. You should put that out there.
I'm gonna.
So I'll explain my answer to you, Josh. It's going to take about 10 minutes. It's pretty lengthy. I've been thinking about it for a while. So if we can
just let it roll, man.
I can't even do it. No, I think this was excellent, man. It really was. I enjoy it. I appreciate you coming on, brother. These are conversations we need to have more often, not just we, fathers, parents, everybody. We need to think about what we're doing, why we're doing it. Like Zac just said, right? It's not about us. It's about our kids. So I think that's the point. That's the main emphasis, is raising healthy children, high functioning, successful kids who do not let that inner critic control their life.
Beautifully put. I really appreciate you fellas having me on and promoting my Twitter account and inviting me on and kind of just asking me for my feedbacks. I'm always want to point out that I'm 30 and I have one son who's not quite yet 4. And so people who's like, well, Josh, you don't know anything. You only have one kid and you're not 50 and you don't have adult children. You don't have grandkids. What do you know? Like, okay, that's fine. That's fine. All of your criticisms are valid. Even so, what I'm pointing out does not just apply to me, and nor is it advice. It is observation. It's observation. And that makes some people uncomfortable. which is why they say, well, what do you know, Joshua? And so when I trigger people, that's usually a good sign I'm over the target of their fragile ego. Let us proceed over the targets of fragile egos.
That's perfect. Hey, thank you for coming on. We love the input. We'll probably be asking you somewhere in the future to do it again, get it rolling, because the input's fantastic. The discussion's great. Enjoy your company. There's a good flow here. But as always, these things do have to come to an end. So if you enjoyed the episode, I've got links to all of Joshua's content below, but you can obviously see it right there at Joshua Lisec. Anthony, another one down, brother. Great seeing you. For those who tuned in, if you like what we're talking about and you want to normalize the discussion on fatherhood, share the word. We're not paying for advertisements. We're not, paying for people to boost our stuff. If you enjoy what we're doing, then it's on you. Share it. Let other dads know all about it, because that's just how we work. You guys have a great night. And again, don't just listen to what we said. Apply it. And if you've got to go back and listen again to take notes, do that. I mean, think about it. You're just investing. You're watching film on fatherhood. You'll watch film on all sorts of things. Sports players watch film to become professionals. Become a professional dad. Watch it. Take notes. Go apply. Test things out. Have fun with it. This shouldn't be a chore. But again, it's not about you. It's about the kids. So watch their response. You guys stay well. Until the next episode, keep getting after it.